Hello, this is Swipe. On the show this week, we go back to the future as reality catches up with fiction. We meet one of the writers behind the famous trilogy. And robotics and supercars, how we might be travelling in the future. Hello and welcome to Swipe. From a familiar setting if you're a fan of Back to the Future. This is a reconstruction of the cafe you see in the second film from the franchise. We're here because you can't have failed to notice this week has been a special one for time travel enthusiasts. October the 21st, 2015 was the day Marty and Doc travelled to, which is why Stu has been looking at what the film got right and what inventions we're still waiting for.
Even if you're not a huge fan of Back to the Future, you can't deny that flying cars, hoverboards and self-tying shoes have helped shape our collective vision of the future. These images still haven't lost their power, even if the date shown in the movie has now passed.
October 21st, 2015!
But Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis were seeking to entertain rather than predict when they wrote their famous trilogy in the 1980s.
We did a lot of research, of course, but we also wanted to present a future that was fun. We didn't want to do the Blade Runner future. We didn't want to do everybody has their head shaved and wears a uniform and nobody smiles. There's a comedy.
The filmmakers' vision of the future did contain some outlandish elements, but they also got a lot of things right. What kinds of tech would we see then if we punched the year 2045 into Doc Brown's DeLorean?
Almost certainly we'll have colonies on Mars. Probably we'll be mining things like helium-3 on the moon. Helium-3 is a sort of a mineral. I think we'll start looking at what we call humanity 2 or human 2.0, which is really breaking away from the notion that our bodies are a given. We'll have things like telescopic eyes, which can be introduced as a 20-minute procedure, I'm told. So I think it's to do with that 3D printed organs.
Great Scott!
The technology that will become commonplace in 30 years' time is already being developed now, and films have an important role to play in showing us what's to come.
If we think back to slightly older films, if you look at something like Blade Runner, for instance, then we have digital signage in there, and that's a really iconic scene from the film, and we use digital signage all the time now. Audiences now are wanting to see stuff that is futuristic, but isn't so far-fetched that it's not believable.
If you're hungry for the future now, though, you might have quite a wait before we see Marty McFly's version of 2015. Stuart Duggan, Sky News.
You're watching Swipe. Still to come. How the tech that makes these supercars possible could influence our future. But first, here's a roundup of some of this week's other tech news.
Apple News has launched in the UK. The service takes articles from different sources, including Sky News, and puts them into one app. A new type of luggage smashed its crowdfunding target amount in less than 24 hours when it launched on Kickstarter. Giro features an inbuilt battery with USB ports for charging devices while on the move. It's also got a location tracker, so you always know where it is. And here's another Kickstarter project doing well. It's a torch that's powered by you. Lumen works when you touch its thermoelectric generator, so it never needs batteries. Its developer says the torch is just the first step in his research into green energy sources.
Remember this little guy? Of course you do. The modern way to play classic titles coming up in our games review. Now about those supercars I mentioned earlier. They might not have flux capacitors, but they could have implications for how we travel in the future. Earlier I caught up with Mark from Anki.
This is Anki Overdrive. It's a robotic racing set. We just launched it in the UK about 2 weeks ago. We just started the game, and one of the first things you'll see is how the cars, they drive really slowly and they quickly map out what the track looks like.
Yeah, I thought they were going pretty slowly for a racing set.
Well, they're just doing a lineup lap. So here they figured out exactly what they're doing,
so
where they're going.
Are they reading the track now?
That's right.
How are they doing that?
So each car has a little tiny camera sensor on the bottom, and as they drive, that camera sensor looks down, it sees little bits of information in the road that tells it where each of the vehicles are. All right, so each of the cars, they just automatically came up to the starting line. We'll start the match here, and it will be 3, 2, 1, get ready. And you're going to use your left thumb to slide up and go fast.
Okay.
There you go. All right, so
these
this is a race to 45 laps.
And these are all smartphone controls.
That's right. So we're remote controlling 2 of the cars, and the third car is actually an AI-controlled character.
Yeah, okay, so the green one is a robotic AI one. Now, can you imagine in the future seeing much more of this kind of technology, like artificial intelligence, controlling cars, controlling things in our homes, much more mainstream? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to take a lot of the advanced science that you see in research labs and put it into consumer products that you can buy for maybe a couple £100.
Do you hope to see more kind of games that are less expensive, more accessible?
I think so much of what we're doing can be applied to other types of consumer robotic applications.
Like what?
I think there's a lot of opportunities for robots around the home, healthcare, even in manufacturing.
Yeah, do you think you'll see these in hospitals one day?
Oh, absolutely. You're already seeing a lot of robots in hospitals right now, bringing drugs to different patients, carrying things around.
Will they be able to read the tracks? Read the hospital corridors, maybe?
Well, to build a smart robot, you always need to know where you are. And robots typically have some sort of sensor that can figure out where it is in the world.
Time to get our games fixed now, and with all the Back to the Future events going on, we thought we'd take a look at what games Marty McFly might have enjoyed playing back in the 80s. Here's Lucy.
Probably one of the most famous games of all time is Pac-Man, made by Midway and Namco from 1980. It was a really famous arcade game. So think about it at the time, all the arcades were sort of dominated by Space Invaders, Asteroid. And then Pac-Man came along, and it's one of these games that has become a cultural touchstone, really, because it's still very much a part of gaming these days. It's very recognizable. Everyone knows how to play Pac-Man. It's a very simplistic game. You play as Pac-Man. You have to go around collecting all the little dots. If you grab a power pellet, you can eat the ghosts that are chasing you, and you basically have to eat all the dots and clear off and go on to the next stage and collect things like keys and cherries and all this stuff. You can play it on pretty much every platform available, but it's really found its home on iOS, so you can just sort of go to the App Store, go to Google Play, you can find Pac-Man, you can play it. A few years ago, there was like this home resurgence, say, of arcade games, so you could have like a little joystick and play, and Pac-Man was always the one that we came with, so Pac-Man's going nowhere. 1984, we got Tetris. It's a Russian puzzle game it's frequently called one of the best games of all time, and to be honest, it is. Again, like Pac-Man, it's a cultural milestone. Everyone knows Tetris. Everyone knows how to play Tetris. Everyone knows the theme from Tetris. And again, it's on pretty much every single gaming platform there is. Last year, Ubisoft brought it out on pretty much every gaming device. So Nintendo 3DS, Vita, PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4. If you want to play Tetris, you can play Tetris. I mean, it's everywhere. It's so universally accessible. People immediately understand, and it's just really fun. And it's also one of those games where if you play it and you fail, it's like, just one more. Just one more. I think that is also the beauty of Tetris. It is that's just one more game. And that's why it's still really popular today. 1988 gave us Altered Beast, so again, starting life in an arcade, found its way onto home consoles like the Mega Drive. So you play as a fallen hero, fallen soldier, and you're resurrected by Zeus, the king of the gods, to rescue his daughter, Athena. And in order to do that, he lets you sort of be... The more you kill, and you can find power-ups, you can sort of transform into this half man, half beast, like a werewolf is the classic one that everyone sees on the box art and everything. And you fight your way through all these kind of ancient Greek enemies, like beasts and things. And you can play it now on the Sega Mega Drive collection, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network. They all have I think it's the Mega Drive version that they've got. So you can play it nowadays. It's a game it's fun to play, and it's sort of like, it's like a reminiscing of the old arcade games, but it's not, it's not a brilliant game, but it is still fun to revisit.
Well, that's it for this week, but take a look at Sky News on mobile and iPad for some bonus features from this week's episode, including an interview with a man who has a Back to the Future DeLorean, and we meet Marty and Doc, the lookalikes. See you next time. Bye-bye.